You got a clock? Come on. There we go. That's muted, and that's cool. All right, there we go. Alrighty. Well, here we are. And everything is, that's working, and that's there, and that's good. All right, we're good. It is a very damp and dark, but not hot Sunday morning here in Tabletop Minions land. It is 66 degrees Fahrenheit. Excuse me. Yeah, so it's pretty cool, but wet. It's been raining for like a day and a half, and when it's not raining, it's just really damp. And currently, right now, it's quite dark, which is why I look kind of overlit, because everything else in here is pretty dark. So there we go. I apologize for the sneezing. I have allergies, and sometimes you can probably tell from the videos. Let me see here. I saw a bunch of people from Texas chatting earlier about how dang hot it is down there. We've got Pontiac, Yorkshire, McFarland, Wisconsin. Hey, how's it going? South Jersey, we've got the UK, Northern Ireland, Quebec City, Naperville, Vancouver, Canada, Oxford, Galway, Ireland. What else have we got here? Canada, Scotland, more Canada, Texas. We've got moderator Matt down there in Illinois. Sweden, Kalamazoo, Michigan, South Florida. VJ Morph asks, how did the afternoon with the Badgers go? And by the Badgers, he means the southeastern Wisconsin Battle Badgers. The image that's in the thumbnail today is actually a picture I took at a club event that I was invited to down in southeastern Wisconsin. Well, yeah, kind of. Yesterday, and it was a lot of fun. We played some Kill Team. I brought my copy of Kill Team down so they could check it out, and I demoed a bunch of games for those guys there, and so I'll talk a little bit about that more later. But the event went really well. There were a bunch of great guys, and it was a very, very nice time. Florida, the Bronx, Detroit, France, Lithuania, San Diego, Virginia Beach, Doncaster, South Yorkshire. What else have we got? Manchester, Spain, Kentucky, Montreal, Canada, Adelaide, Australia, Halifax, Nova Scotia. Excuse me. So yeah, that's pretty good. Mark says I did a demo game of Kill Team at my FLGS, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I've been really enjoying the demos and the playing. I'm going to be giving more demos again actually this afternoon at my local shop, our little Wargaming club. We're having a little thing, and we're doing it at the local shop, so that'll be fun. So yeah, I've got lots of plans for this upcoming week for getting things painted and finished and that way, because this whole week has been crazy. Just with all of the video stuff and the Kill Team stuff and all of that. For those that don't know, so I got a copy of Kill Team back on like the 28th of June. It just sort of showed up one day, and I was sort of surprised, and so I reached out to my contact at Games Workshop, and they're like, and I said, I'm assuming I can't talk about this right now since I've not heard a word about it. And they're like, oh yeah, no, sorry, we were supposed to send you an email about that. And so that was under what's known as an embargo, and I wasn't supposed to talk about it until the 21st of July, which was yesterday. So I started working on. So I think it would be the 6th or 7th of July, 6th I think. I filmed the unboxing part, and then I started working on building the terrain and getting all that stuff done so that I could then. My plan was this past Wednesday night or Thursday night, I was going to film the second half, the part where I came back and showed it off all painted and stuff like that, and then I was going to do a normal Friday video for Friday morning, and then around 6 p.m. Friday, which would be the 21st, but it would be midnight over there in the UK, therefore AKA the 21st. I was going to, kind of surprise spring the video up. That was the plan until I woke up on Wednesday morning and had an email from Games Workshop that was not just to me. I'm sure it was to all the people that got a copy of Kill Team, basically saying, hey, if you want to start talking about it now, we've lifted the embargo. You can start talking about it now. So I had to very quickly film the second half. Luckily, I have very understanding bosses. So I said, hey, can I take a quick vacation day? And then I ran to the studio in the morning, filmed the second half, came home, edited it, and got it up around 2:30 p.m. my time. So that's where that video came from. And then, but I still needed to make a video for Friday as well. And then yesterday was the live patron show. And then I drove down to that club meeting and then and had a lot of fun, came back. And then now I'm doing this. And then I've got lunch with the in-laws. And then I'm running a demo. And sometime tonight I'm going to hopefully actually build some Necrons. Anyway, so that's what's busy about this whole last week. This upcoming next week is going to be just getting prepped for Gen Con and hopefully, and filming some videos obviously, but I should still be able to get a decent amount of hobbying done. So that I'm looking forward to. Portland, Oregon, Limerick, Ireland, Cologne, Germany, Tampa, Florida. Got a bunch of people here. That's cool. Let me see here. Jason Turner says, I'll be running some Kill Team events at Gen Con. Hopefully I get my copy soon so I can learn to play. That would be helpful. If you've played 8th edition, a lot of it is similar, but there are some differences, and those are the things you kind of have to pay attention to. That's one of the things I've noticed so far of in running demos and playing it, is that sometimes there's assumptions. I mean, so many of the stats in the book for the armies are basically identical, but every once in a while there's little weird differences, it's kind of interesting to sort of see those, definitely. Gene Rodriguez says, I screwed up my pre-order. Pre-ordered Kill Team box in Spanish version. Well, hopefully you can get that figured out. Or if you know somebody who speaks Spanish, then you could do that too, I suppose. But there's that. What else have we got going on in here? Kelly says, putting together some tanks for bolt action and also some Lehman Russ for my IG. I built, a couple weeks ago, I built my Sherman T for Conflict 47, which is basically a Sherman, I think it's an M4A3, roughly, chassis. But instead of the normal turret, it has, and the chassis is, the normal Warlord kit, so it's all nice and plastic, and it goes together actually quite nicely. But the turret is all resin because it is, well, there's also the plastic turret it comes with, but it also comes with this resin turret because it's the Tesla cannon version, because it's Conflict 47, so it's weird World War II. So it looks really cool. The problem is that, like, that turret is so, like, it's such a big chunk of resin and it's quite heavy that I've got to figure out a way to I don't want to glue it in there, but I also don't want it to wiggle around as much as it does, because like anytime you pick that thing up and turn it, just tip that tank any direction, the barrel on that whole turret spins because it's trying to get low because of gravity, because it weighs a lot. So I need to figure out a way to kind of make it like so I can still take the turret off but not spin around and potentially fall out and chip the paint. I also went online and found, I think on eBay, found somebody who was selling like 28 millimeter like tank stowage. For those of you who've ever seen old pictures from like World War II, a lot of times they would just basically strap a bunch of stuff to the outside of the tank because there wasn't a lot of room on the inside, and they needed to carry tents or, extra junk or whatever, and so they would have all this stuff. Well, this tank kit from Conflict 47 doesn't come with anything like that particularly. But I found somebody online who had a bunch of resin stuff, so I ordered that. I think it came from the UK. It did just show up recently, so I'm going to glue a bunch of stuff to the outside of that, and then probably after I get back from Gen Con, I'll probably finish up a couple of kill teams, and then I've got to move right back into Conflict 47 because I've got to get my Conflict 47 stuff ready to go for Valhalla, which is at the end of September. So, I'm looking forward to painting the tank, though. I really am. There's not a lot of space. I'm not sure where I'm going to put a lot of decals. Like, they give you some, like, big, like, star in the circle kind of decals. but there's not like a huge enough space on that tank to put it. And I've seen people who've done it amazingly with the microset and the microsol, so it fits into all the little crevices and stuff like that. But I need to practice with that before I start trying to pull the trigger, frankly. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Let me see here. What else do we got? Let me see. So, Rafal says, I'm going to buy that orc kill team because I already have orcs from Shadow War Armageddon. Yeah, I just completely forgot that I have orcs from Shadow War Armageddon too. I never built them, so if I wanted to, I mean, there's like if you look in the book, like the Shadow War Armageddon only just comes with boys, I think, but orcs, and you guys who've been paying closer attention to the faction foci, anyway, you'll know this better, but it's, and you can't really see it. Anyway, orc boys. That was cat related. Orc boys, Gretchens, Commandos, Burna boys, and Ludas. Those are your 5 options for kill team, units for the orc army. So you can do a lot of different stuff like that. Tick Flair says, will the next Every Other Sunday show be live from Gen Con? Probably not, because we've all seen how terrible that's gone in the past when I've tried to do them on the road. You could reference the last 2 Tabletop Minions Expos. You could reference Valhalla last year. So I'm not 100% sure yet. I don't know if I'm going to try to do something from my phone, which obviously won't be 2 hours because I would run out of data. Lord knows that the internet at the hotel will probably stink, so I'm not going to use that. I'm not sure exactly yet. I'm thinking we may have to skip a week and but I gotta check the schedule and see how that'll affect. So yeah, but that's a good catch. I did notice that last night or Saturday, or wait, yesterday was Saturday. I noticed it recently that there was potentially that there would be a problem. So I've got to kind of go from there. Peter S says, I've never played 40K. Is Kill Team a good game to start? I think so, because this book has not only all of the rules you'll need, so you won't need to get the 40K rules and things like that, and it's a good primer for playing 40K, but it also has all the lists for the different types of figures that you might have depending on the army, and it also has the ability. There's like the basic rules and then there's advanced rules. So it kind of gives you places to grow. When you start using the advanced rules, in my opinion, those rules are actually a bit more advanced than 40K because they're dealing with they're dealing with single figures. Each figure in Kill Team is its own little unit, and you move them and do things with them separately. You don't move them together like you do in 40K when you move them in squads. So there are rules for jumping across gaps. If you're up on a piece of terrain, you want to jump from this piece to that piece, which you don't have that in regular 40K. There's rules for if you're on the edge of something and you get shot, you might fall off, and then what occurs when that happens. So you don't have to use those. Those are in the advanced rules area, but you don't have anything like that in 40K because you're not dealing generally with single figures. You're dealing with units, with groups, squads, whatever you want to call them. So yeah, I think it's a great, especially if you've never played before, I think it's a great system to start with if you want to get into 40K. If you want to get into like bigger battle games, but you've never played any of them before, I would say Age of Sigmar is a pretty good one because they've kind of designed that to be there. Almost, it can be kind of like an intro battle game because the rules are free, because the war scrolls are free and all that kind of stuff. With this, and it's also, it's not a long rule set, but it's still got a lot of, like chess. Like chess is not hard to learn, but it's very difficult to master. I think that there's a bit of that going on in Age of Sigmar, especially with the new rules. But with Kill Team, you've got everything in that one book, so it's a good place to start. And if you're like a sci-fi guy and you like that kind of stuff more than you like fantasy stuff, then I would tell you to look into Kill Team. It allows you also to focus on like making small little groups instead of having to building an entire, army. And so if you're like me and you like that kind of buffet style, you can build like 4 or 5 Grey Knights and have a group. You can build like 8 Necrons and have a group. You can build, some Death Watch or whatever, and that's really fun. Frankie Lee Bailey says, Gen Con live show. No, please God, no. But a few 5-minute quickies like you did with Miranda would be cool. Yeah, I was planning on doing that, definitely. Like, sort of quick live things. Like I've done, yeah, like that one I did at Adepticon. And I've done stuff like that in the past. So I will probably do some things like that, or I might even try to make some quickie videos that aren't live, but I'll still edit them on my phone and produce them. I did that at Adepticon 2 or 3 years ago, and they worked out okay. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I've been doing this long enough now where I know that people don't really generally watch convention coverage, especially like pre-recorded stuff. The live stuff, they'll just kind of pop in and be like, hey, what's going on? And in the case with the interview with Miranda, you know, she was in the thumbnail, and she's a pretty lady, and so I'm sure that helped as well. But when I make a video about like, oh, let's look at all this cool stuff at Adepticon or Gen Con, you know, whether I make it with fancy cameras, whether I shoot it on my phone, whether I do whatever I do, if you go through and look at all my videos and order them by views, all the convention stuff's at the bottom, generally. So I still enjoy doing it, you know, and I understand that maybe not everybody's interested in seeing that stuff, but I still do it somewhat. I just don't go real heavy and try to make tons of videos and run myself ragged on my convention. I would rather, I mean, so I've mentioned before how I wasn't planning on going to Gen Con this year. I'll just talk about this real good. So I wasn't planning on going to Gen Con this year. It's just very large. It's very expensive, and as a gamer, I've been there enough times, and I'm like, I think I might take some time off. That all being said, after, like in the last couple of weeks, after like the 4th different manufacturer reached out to me and said, hey, let's have a meeting at Gen Con, I thought, oh, crap, you know, and then I started thinking about like what I could be doing at Gen Con also for Game 4. Like, we don't have a booth, obviously, but I could be going around talking to publishers and telling them about, you know, we've got a packet that we're building that we're going to be giving to publishers for Game 4 to let them know about it, and to give them, you know, we've got a couple of things that are going to be aimed towards publishers, new features coming up, and then so I'll be doing that as well. So then I was like, all right, well, can I even get a ticket anymore? Because I've been hearing that the 4-day badges were taken. So I reached out to a contact there that I have and looked into getting a media badge, because I didn't know if I could still get a media badge this close to the convention. And as it turned out, I was able to, so that was good. So that problem was solved. Then the problem of where I was going to sleep reared its ugly head, because housing at Gen Con, 62,000 people all in downtown, trying to get into downtown Indianapolis is difficult. But a good friend of mine from down in the Milwaukee area, who I've stayed with him and other people down there before, I reached out to him and I said, hey, is there any more, do you know if there's any other rooms down there? Because sometimes he'll get multiple rooms just to make sure he's got the room he wants, and then he kind of, you know, not gives away, they have to pay for it, but then he kind of transfers these other rooms that he's gotten to other people and things like that. And he's rabid about getting the best possible rooms in Gen Con. Anyway, he said, well, we still got a space left in the suite that we're in if you're interested. So I'm going to be hanging out with those guys again, which are great guys, and I'm looking forward to that as well. So I'll be going. I'll be mainly doing meetings and doing, you know, talking to publishers and stuff like that. I'll obviously still be going around looking at cool stuff and doing things like that, which I will shoot and try to post things about. Instagram, I'll probably be doing a bunch of Instagram. I started an Instagram TV account. Instagram TV is a new thing from Instagram, where they're kind of taking on YouTube a little bit, where you can make videos that go, I think, as long as 10 minutes, and if you have enough subscribers, maybe as long as an hour. They're shot vertically, though, so they're like, you know, tall phone-wise. I'm thinking I might do more behind-the-scenes kind of stuff there, because I've got a lot of people asking about that, and we'll see. But anyway, I did post one recently when I was filming Friday's video on Thursday night. So, where was I going? Anyway, so I'll be at Gen Con. I had some people yesterday in either some comments or in the Irregulars chat on Patreon. Someone asked about, is there going to be a meetup at Gen Con like I did last year? And there probably will be. So I got to figure out when the best time is going to be and all that stuff, but I'll post on, like, you know, all the different social junk and whatnot. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, and if you're going to be at Gen Con, hopefully we'll be able to get together at some point and hang out. Probably be maybe like Saturday night. We'll see how it goes. All right. So Where are we at? Let's see here. Thomas says, I'm buying Kill Team because it looks fun, but I don't have the time for a big war game. Also, being able to use some of my guys from First Strike is pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, there are people that I was talking to who are like, well, I'm going to buy the book because I already have tons of terrain, and I already have a bunch of painted guys for these different armies. I'm sure I can pull people out. Like, yesterday when I was giving demos down in the southern part of Wisconsin, the host both guys just started digging through the stuff they brought and then just made up some quick kill teams based off of the stuff that they had. And that worked out really well. So yeah, it's not that difficult. Nick's comment says, hello everybody, currently assemble some custom Cadians for the kill team. This stream is a great help. Thank you, Adam. Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I think that this whole kind of sit and chat, the Every Other Sunday show, whether you watch it live or whether you catch it later, it's just kind of to some degree, it's a little bit of a podcast. It's a kind of a one-sided podcast, admittedly, but it is kind of a podcast, and it just allows, like, I know I like to paint while listening to people talk, whether it is podcasts, audiobooks, stuff like that. I can't paint with Netflix on or the television because I'll stop, as I've said before, I'll stop paying attention to what I'm painting and I'll just be watching the show. Even if it's something I don't really care that much about, I seem to have this weird visual orientation, and then my brush will dry out or whatever. So that's why I need to have audio, and generally talking. Like, I can listen to music fine, but then my mind starts to wander sort of weird. But if I'm listening to people talk, I can focus on that pretty well. But then I'm visually focusing on the figure at hand. Just kind of works out. DJ Todd P. Harris, question: in the Kill Team rulebook, going to be available at the same time, is the Kill Team rulebook going to be available at the same time as the box game? Will you be able to buy the cards separately? Cards separately, I don't know, but, look at this. So this is the Games Workshop website. This is the pre-order stuff. So they have the Kill Team Essentials collection for $55, which includes the book and a box of cards. Now, I don't know exactly which cards are going to be in there, because they didn't send me one of these. Let's take a look, shall we? Look at that. It's going to be data cards. Data cards. Kill teams must necessarily be able to adapt to ever-changing circumstances in a mission, blah, blah, blah. When you run a Battleforge kill team as outlined in the Kill Team core manual, you gain access to command points. These are spent on tactics, special abilities for each type of troop. This set of cards is a handy reference for the 36 universal tactics from the Kill Team core manual, along with 25 blank data cards, which you can use to record the names and deeds of your own kill team. So yeah, they will have a kit you can get, which is basically the $40 book and a $15 pack of cards, and then you can buy that separately. They may even just sell the cards separately, but they may not. Kill Team core manual is $40. Here's the 2 starters. They come with some figures, some terrain, and they don't come with the instruction booklet, so you got to buy the instruction booklet separately. What else? So I'm ordering, because I'm that kind of dork, I'm ordering this cool case thing, because I don't know, I just think it's neat. I do like the foam that they put, hang on, there we go. I like that GW kind of foam. I mean, it's not, would I put a bunch of really super nicely painted figures in there and throw them down the stairs? Maybe not, but for carrying them back and forth to the shop or whatever, this is really nice, because I'm never in a situation pretty much where I'm like, oh man, I just need this little foam area to be a bigger, because I've got spiky bits sticking on the top of his head, or he's got a banner or whatever. This is, I think, a cool setup. So yeah, I'm ordering one of these from my local shop, and I'm also getting this buddy here, because these statues are awesome, frankly. Like, I'm going to do a video, I think, about trying to paint these guys. That's going to be a hoot. There is a picture. Like, yeah, if you look here, they're kind of hard to see, but you see those tiny little dudes down there? Those are Primaris Marines in comparison to the size of these guys. So that's crazy. Like, this is huge. So, yeah, I'm definitely ordering this box, mainly just because of the statues. If they would sell the statues separately, I would almost buy just the statues, but I do need some more terrain anyway. So being able to get a bunch of extra terrain and these awesome statues, I'm totally on board. But if you don't like those statues, I mean, for $35, you can just get this small set of ruins. For $50, they got this set up here. You got this set for $75. And that's what's interesting, too, is that this set here, with these kind of flying buttresses with the dudes on top, that's not in the everything else pretty much, other than those big statues and these flying buttresses with the dudes on top, everything else is in the starter box to some degree, in some variation. But this is a very new piece that I have not seen before. So I'm not sure if I'm going to, maybe down the road I order this. I don't know. It's hard to say. But yeah, it's just, I'm super excited about the new terrain. What else have they got here? Oh, then they're getting other new stuff. But basically, what did I do? Oh, I hit the, yeah. So yeah, the Kill Team stuff is pretty cool, and it was a fun video. So yeah, this is the different stuff that you can order. The big fancy box is the Kill Team starter box plus. Well, now why does the cards come with the starter box? That's weird. I don't know why you would have to have the data cards, because the data cards basically come in the starter box. Maybe you're getting a second set. Oh, maybe it's because of the. Maybe it's because that they've got the blank ones in there, and the blank ones maybe don't come with the set. In the set, I think they've got data cards already filled out for the 2 factions that come in the main box. I haven't really looked through those cards too much yet. But anyway, there's lots of different options of things that you can go for on that. And I'm just, I'm looking forward to getting my stuff. Like, I'm not going to be able to build that terrain until a good time after Gen Con, but that's okay. All right. What else have we got going on here? I hope that answered the question. Let's see here. Shandy says, the lists you talked about in the previous video were small elite teams, but non-loyalist Marines teams look like they might favor small, weak models. Do the rules look like hordes will be prevalent? Well, hordes is a strong word because there's a maximum of only 20 figures you can have in your group. But still, in comparison to 5, that's a lot. We were talking about it yesterday a little bit. One of the guys was, because one of the missions we were doing was, one of the guys was the attacker and one was the defender, and the defender had to basically try to stop the attacker from crossing his, like, the line he was guarding on the back of the board. So one guy was just trying to get off the board, running past the defender, and the defender was trying to stop him. If one of the teams, and for each person that got past, you got a victory point, and at the end of the game, each person that was still left on the table from the defender's team gave the victory point to the attacker. Well, we were talking about it, and he's like, if I took 20 Gretchens, like, you couldn't stop them all. I don't care, like, pretty much what army you had, unless you also had 20 Gretchens. It would be very difficult in that particular mission to stop them all. So it depends a little bit upon the mission type. Depending on how close the Gretchens are, like, a couple of heavy bolters could take a lot of them out, because you can split fire as long as the initial target is within like 2 inches or something like that of the secondary targets. So you could split fire. So it's something like is it 3 shots or is it 6 shots with a heavy bolter? I forget off the top of my head. Anyway, I can look it up. But you could, if you threw a bunch of heavy bolts into, a bunch of different Gretchens, Grots, whatever you want to call them, that would probably stop them. But a heavy bolter is heavy 3. So yeah, if the Gretchens were close enough together, you could easily throw a bolt into each one, and as long as you probably hit, most likely, and hopefully you would, being like a Space Marine, let's say, or something like that, you could probably whittle them down a little bit quicker, but it would be very difficult to get them to stop. Now, it's not a zero-sum game. Like, it's not like if at the end of the turn, like 3 or 4 Gretchens got through, but there were still 5 left on the board, well then, it wouldn't. So there's that issue too. Having too many in a mission like that potentially leaves you with a whole bunch still left on the board. And there are specific rules about, like, well, you can't get closer than an inch to this, you can't, like, just run by a guy. Is if you get within an inch, then you have to be engaged and stuff. So depending on how the defender sort of spaced themselves out on the board and how the terrain was, it was an interesting kind of thought experiment. But yeah, I don't know that. I mean, you've always got your weight of fire, but against Space Marines, I mean, one of the games we played yesterday, I don't think anybody, and it was very weird. This is not normal, but I don't think anybody ever blew a saving roll. One guy died because he overcharged his plasma and it took him out. every other shot ever was basically saved, and it was just Necrons trying to run, which is funny. But Necrons trying to run off the board while Death Guard were trying to stop them. So that was that mission that I was talking about. But it was interesting. It was a lot of fun. The new painter says you can have 20 Gretchen. They'll be absolutely awful, but you can have it. Yeah, the other thing too is it will only use about 80 of your 100 points, and there's really, like, they don't have any. You can't put armor on them or any kind of war gear as far as it looks like. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to check out. I'm sure people will run it and try to see how it looks like. Yeah. So yeah. Jamie asks, what do you think? It feels like the games like Shadow War Armageddon and now Kill Team, the GW's aggressive answer to games like Corvus Belli's, Infinity, and Privateer Press's Warm Hordes. Well, I do believe that they're doing this because they are seeing how popular skirmish games in general are. Absolutely. I think that even when they turned fantasy into Age of Sigmar, and they were like, okay, well, we want to have an easier, a lesser barrier of entry for people to get into the fantasy type games. So that's why they made it, Age of Sigmar, and made it downloadable rules, easier to play to some degree. Round bases, you don't have to move them in trays and all that kind of stuff. That was a definite move to trying to get, because they understand that if new people don't join the hobby, they're going to go out of business. So there's that. But they also, I think, have finally cast an eye over the landscape of modern wargaming and looked to see how many different, successful skirmish games there are out there. And a lot of that comes from, like I said before, it's a buffet thing. It's a bite-sized thing. If you play Malifaux by Weird Games, you can buy a crew for $45 to $55, paint up that crew, play them. They're a viable, crew. You can play them and start having fun. And then when you're like, you know what, I want to try a different crew now, then you do that. And then you try a different crew. And then you try a different crew. And it's not that initial, like, oh, I have to spend $700 on an army. But over the course of 2 years, you might spend $700 on Malifaux because you might have 10 crews. I saw Christopher Dick in here before, and he's a friend of mine from down in the Milwaukee area, and I know he has a lot of crews of a lot of games, specifically Malifaux. He taught me how to play Malifaux, and yeah, I mean it's depending on how you look at it. Some people will say, oh, it's death of 1,000 cuts because you're constantly, but on the other hand, there's a lot of people I know out there who sell armies, big army games, because they want to play a different army now. So they bought this army, they started painting, they got like 2 units done, but they still had tons of stuff left, still in the original shrink wrap boxes and stuff, and now they're like, oh no, Grey Knights, that's what I want to do. So then they sell all their Tyranids, and then they lose money generally, and then they buy a bunch of Grey Knights and they start working on those, and they're like, oh, I want to do this. And skirmish games allow you to be able to jump from army to army to army a little bit, and then just have more things to choose from, paint in different styles, build different things. And I like skirmish games because of that. Mercs, which is seemingly maybe a little defunct now, but Mercs was really cool because you bought a box. It was like the original metal ones were like $75, but once they started putting them out in plastic, they dropped the price crazy, and like you got an entire army for like $35. You know what I mean? And so you could grab an army, paint up the 5 or 6 guys or whatever, be like, cool, and then be like, now I want to try this army, and then do it again. And it just makes sense for, I think, today's gamer versus the whole, I want to play this army. And there's nothing wrong with people who want to play the big army games. It's just that a lot of people don't want to play that way, specifically people who are starting out. When you're starting out, you don't generally want to do that. It's something where these small skirmish games can kind of get the itch into a person, and then eventually they're like, okay, cool, now I think I will build a big army based off of this starter army that I built for a kill team. I built 5 Grey Knights, but I really want a 2,000 point Grey Knight army for 40k. And not everybody will make that leap, but more people will than if you just were like, why don't you just start with 40k? You know what I mean? So I think it's a smart business plan on their part. Plus, for someone like myself who likes to play small little chunks of different little armies, it's a lot of fun that way too. So yeah, I think it's a good idea, and I think it is partially driven by Games Workshop looking and seeing a lot of other skirmish games doing pretty well. So they're thinking, I mean, obviously, like Kill Team is not a new concept to them. They've been making Kill Team for years. The way they're building it now is different because in the past you used to have the 40K rulebook and you used to have the codex you wanted. And then the Kill Team book was this very thin little book that just gave you kind of special parameters on how to play in a skirmish style. This new book is everything. You have the rule book in here, you have the army lists, aka the codex, and then all the missions and all that jazz, and then you can go from there. So it's always a good idea for a business to try to find an easier way for people to get into the game. You know what I mean? So absolutely. All right. Kelly Audio says Malifaux is excellent. I really love the card mechanic. That's one of my favorite parts of that game. I really do. Let me see here. What else have we got? Joseph says it's like X-Wing, a little here, a little there. Next thing you know, you have a fleet, and Fantasy Flight changes versions on you. Still a sore spot. Yeah, when I read that when X-Wing was changing into a new like version 2.0, and you had to buy these upgrade kits and all that kind of stuff, and the upgrade kits were, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the upgrade kits are only good for 4 ships. So like if you buy the Imperial upgrade kit, it has upgrade stuff for pretty much everything the Imperium's or the Empire's ever made. But if you have, say, more than 4 TIE fighters, which you probably do, then you couldn't run all 4 of them with the new stuff because you would end up having to buy another one of those upgrade kits. I don't know. I've never. I was going to say I played competitively one time. It was possibly the last tournament I've ever played in of X-Wing, of any game actually that I've ever played in. And I haven't played it as much as I used to. I play it once in a great while with a couple different friends, and I have not really. None of us actually have really planned to upgrade to the new 2.0 stuff. We'll just keep playing against each other because we don't do the stuff that breaks the 1.0 rules. We just get together and have fun and play. So we're not really looking at upgrading, which is kind of a benefit, I think. One of the big benefits to tabletop games is that if in video games, if they shut down the server and they make a new version of the game, you've got to upgrade to that new version of the game. You got to go out and buy the new version of the game because the old game doesn't work anymore. My X-Wing stuff all still works. Now, if I'm going to go to a tournament, well, it won't. But if I'm just going to play with the guys that also are fine with 1.0, then we'll do it. There are still people out there playing 3rd edition 40K and 5th edition fantasy and whatever type, so that's one of the things I like about tabletop gaming is I get to choose. Anyway. Paul Noxie says, I have 3 friends getting into the hobby. Not needing to take over a ton of minis to people's houses is great for me. Yeah, that little case that I was showing you before, like that thing's probably only like yay big. It's probably, 9 inches by 6 inches. And it'll carry pretty much any size kill team, like a single kill team. If you want to bring all of your kill teams over, you'll need a bigger thing. But if you want to take one, you'll be able to go find that way. Dorn Jr. says skirmish is great if you want to play orcs or Tyranid army, but not collect a full horde type army. That's true too. Like I've never done orcs and I've never done Tyranids. I was kicking around. I do have a small orc force because Shadespire's got that same sort of thing. You know what I mean? Where you're buying like 4 models and they come in a little kit for $30 and you can play them in Shadespire. Like I'm really looking forward to painting my orcs for Shadespire. But I've kicked around the idea of maybe making a Tyranid list for Kill Team because I've never painted Tyranids before, and I think it'd be a lot of fun to go try to figure out a new paint scheme and make them look like weird bugs or whatever. They already look like weird bugs, but look through Google image search to find like a cool paint scheme. Make a cool paint scheme based off of like a weird real world bug, and kind of do that. I might still do that. That's. I'm going to look into it because I've never played Tyranids before, and I think it would be a hoot. So, yeah. What else? GC and T says, I will not follow X-Wing 2.0 for now. I will play Kill Team, even though I have about 60 X-Wing models. Yeah, I do too. And like I said, I just play with the friends that still want to stick with 1.0, and we play once in a while. And, the models, I didn't have to paint them, so... they can kind of sit in the basement, and when I want to pull them out, I pull them out, and I'm not sitting there going, oh, there's about 6 more X-Wings I should really paint. They're all done. They're ready to go. So they're not going anywhere, and it's okay. Beej, that's a fun name. Do you have to play in one of the sectors? I already have Orky terrain and would like to use that, so I would have to proxy it as a Would I have to? No. You can use whatever terrain you want. In the book, they tell you, I mean, so the board that it comes with is 22 by 30, which is a really smart thing, and I think I've mentioned this before. That size board is really smart because it fits on a normal 6 foot by 30 inch table that pretty much every game store, at least in America, has a bunch of, because that's what you play Magic on generally. So the fact that they made a game that fits on a normal table is great. Going back to X-Wing, those 3 foot by 3 foot boards that you play at X-Wing don't fit on one of those tables because those tables are 30 inches across and 3 foot by 3 foot is 36 inches. So what you have to do is put a big piece of wood on top of your 6 foot tables if you're the game store owner, or you have to have normal miniatures tables, which are usually 4 by 6. I think it was very smart of GW to build this board so it would fit on a normal 6 foot table. I think that was super smart because you can have events and things like that and not have to put out a whole bunch of extra work into doing it. You just put your people on there. It's also a lot of fun to play on a small board like that because you're playing with so many fewer figures, and you have the amount of terrain that comes in that box is great because there's a lot of like getting down and looking. I'm like, I think I can see that guy, and yeah, I can see him and stuff. And it's not too crowded, but it's not uncrowded. That all being said, they also say in the book, if you want to play larger, you want to play 3 by 3 or 4 by 4 or whatever, knock yourself out. You can totally do that. Conversation I had with one of the guys at the club yesterday was, and he's a big terrain builder, and he was looking at the board, and he's like, one of the great things is that when you sit down to build like a whole custom 3-dimensional, custom made 4x6 40K board, that is a big order. That is a lot of stuff that's going to take tons of time. He's like, building a really cool 3-dimensional 22 by 30 board, not nearly as big of a hassle, not nearly as big of a project. Also, much easier to store because he's got an entire garage. He runs a lot of Flames of War too. That group does a lot of demos for Flames of War. So they have a bunch of huge, really gorgeous Flames of War boards. If you were at TMX, not this year, but last year, they brought the humongous World War II Point de Hoc board that they had a huge cliff on the front and then all the bombed top and the water and the ocean. It was really gorgeous stuff. So they do amazing stuff. But the trick is that stuff all has to go someplace when you're not at a convention or you're not at a demo. So the idea of being able to store those smaller boards when you want to make them nice and 3D is spectacular. That's a really smart idea. So yeah, you don't have to use that board. You don't have to use that terrain. You can use pretty much whatever you want. There are rules for climbing, and so you might want to have guys up, on higher pieces, but you don't have to. But yeah, you could use any of the other GW line of terrains. You could build your own terrain. You could use other companies' terrain. You could use 3D printed. Well, if you want to do papercraft, you could use laser printed terrain. You could use laser cut MDF, whatever you want. There's no specific like there's nothing on the board that says, well, this is like it's built in or proprietary, where it's like, well, this is the score point here on the board and you have to have it in the right spot. If you go to a tournament, I bet they'll probably only use the official stuff, but yeah, if you want to play with your friends, you can knock yourself out. Don't actually knock yourself out, but you know what I mean. So yes, level 6 is, I think, part of the issue Rune Wars had was the odd table size. Well, right, again, you were playing on a 3x6, right? That works great if you are a game store that has normal miniatures tables, because those are usually 4x6, and then it gives you a little extra 6 inches on each side to keep your cards and crap like that. That's great. But yeah, the fact that this is designed to easily fit either the long way or even the shallow way. I mean, like in that picture, we were playing on the bar down in Rick's basement. That's what we had it set up on the bar, and we were playing it there. Because it fits. And so I think it's a smart idea. I really do. Rafal says, I think it was designed by chance. They just had to fit the board into the boxes. Yeah, I don't know, man. I do think it's very specifically 30 inches. You know what I mean? And yeah, because the thing is that actually if they wanted to fit it in the box, there's a little extra room that they could have made it a bit longer in the box, but then that board would have been longer than 30 inches. So there is about maybe a good 3 to 4 inches extra room in that box that the board doesn't fill. width-wise it fills it, but length-wise it doesn't. So I do think that it was a conscious choice. I mean, it may just be lucky. I guess that's a possibility. But either way, you know, bonus for us, in my opinion. What else have we got? Magnus says, Kill Team seemed like a great idea, but it is lacking a bit in choices models-wise. Kill Teams feels like it would use a lot of elites like striking... Like Kill Teams feels like it should use a lot of elites like striking scorpions. I mean, I've heard some people saying, well, they didn't use this model, they didn't use that model. You know, I mean, maybe they'll make expansions down the road, but you got to have some specific models. And I think that they're also looking at it from the aspect of, like... I think the model with the most wounds in that entire game is probably the Lictor from the Tyranids, and I think it's 4 wounds. So they've got to watch capabilities. They've got to make sure that the models can't do too much cool stuff, because then they will be overpowered. And I think that they're concerned a little bit more about balance to some degree. So I'm sure that's why it's going to do that way. Terracotta says, hey Adam, did you try the fake frost spray to seal your miniatures yet? No, I have not, because it has been, well, especially late. First of all, I haven't had anything yet that I've wanted to varnish, and now that I've got some stuff that I do want to varnish, now it is crazy humid, and I do not want... You never want to try to varnish anything when it's humid. So if it ever gets not humid again, I will be using it and trying it, but I will, like I said, I will be testing it on something I don't care a lot about first. I'll just spray paint some dudes like a, you know, glossy, and then do a little bit of a test to see how it works out. But yeah, with how humid it is, like everything is damp right now, both in and out of the house. We haven't turned the AC on because it's, like I said, it's like 66 degrees outside, so it seems dumb to turn on the air conditioning, except that everything is just moist. There you go. That's a word that a lot of people don't like. Nick says, who would win in a fight, Sam or Duncan? Sam's a lot taller. He's probably got a longer reach. He's wiry, and he's been working out. Actually, he's not nearly as wiry as he used to be. He's been working out a lot. He's getting some guns on him. So I don't know. I would like to think that they wouldn't fight. But let's say that there was a boxing match for charity. I think that Sam would win. So yeah. What else? Darren says, Joshua, get the Getting Started books for both games for $5 each. They're written... that's an answer to somebody else. Sorry. Let me see. Craig Brown says, maybe they made the board a certain size to ensure that you get the meat of the action quickly, but also to make it last around 30 to 40 minutes. That's also a very good point. In a lot of bigger games, there's the first several turns are just like, well, we need to get closer to each other. When it's a 22 by 30 board, like the bolt rifle that, let's say, a Primaris can shoot, can hit basically anywhere on the board, unless, like, you were standing in one corner as a Primaris, let's say here, and you wanted to shoot the other diagonal corner, which is, this is really hard, up here. That would be longer than 30 inches. But if you went from this edge of the board to this edge of the board, that would be in range, be 30 inches. The thing is that you'd think that, okay, well, I can just hit anybody all the time because the range is so short. Except that the new rule that's in Kill Team is that if you are shooting a model that is... If you're shooting a model that is over halfway, your range, let's say, is 30 inches. Let me try to explain this as best I can. You've got a bolt rifle, you're a Primaris, your range is 30 inches. If the target is within 15 inches, which is half of your distance, there's no penalty to shoot. If you're shooting somebody who's from over 15 out to 30 inches, then you've got a -1 to hit them. So, and that's the case with all weapons, even pistols. Pistols, you've got a -1 from 6.01 inches to 12 inches. So, and then of course, cover gets into play as well. So if you're obscured by cover or even by other models, then there's another, basically like -1 to hit. So there's lots of times when like even Space Marines are trying to hit on a 5. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that's a smart move on their part. But it does get the battle started a lot quicker because you're all kind of a bit closer to each other too. So that's definitely... Joseph says, I built a mini spray booth for my desk that vents out the window, so now I am blessed to be able to varnish in the nice dry indoor air now. Well, that's pretty helpful, yeah. And because varnishes especially can be really stinky, like fumes and stuff like that. So being able to vent all that outside, that's really key. Like I've talked to people who prime inside sometimes, and that's fine. I mean, I don't like it because it stinks at the house, but it's okay. But varnish, especially Tester's dull coat, would not want to do in the house. It is really bad. So that's why you go outside. GC&T says Tau rifles will have a field day on that board. To some degree, yes, except that generally their ballistic level is not as good, and then, like I mentioned, the other things, they may be hitting on 6s at some points, so there's that too. Hey, it's Andy2D6. How you doing, Andy? Just been checking out Kill Team. I might give it a try if my Dead Zone table is big enough for it. They do say in the book that the minimum size that they suggest, I think, is 2x2. And if I remember correctly, the original, like, neoprene mat that came in the first version of Dead Zone, I think was 2x2. Coincidentally, the Realm of Battle boards are also 2x2, but I swear it said that. Let me see if I can find it in the first part up here. Roll-offs, movement phase, initiative phase, war gear options. Most games of Kill Team are played on an area of 30 by 22, which is the size of the game board included in the box game. You can play games of Kill Team on a playing surface of any size, though if it is any smaller than 24 by 24 inches, you may find it feels a bit cramped. So that's what they officially say in the book. Absolutely. Johannes says, I might just get the Kill Team box just for the terrain. Well, again, you're in luck. They do just sell the terrain separately if you're into that too. So, yeah. What else have we got? VJ Morph says, use a wet palette and don't leave the pot sitting around open. Oh, this is an answer to somebody else. Someone talking about their GW paints getting gloppy. Pretty much any paints, when you're painting, if you paint onto a palette that's not a wet palette, they will dry out quite quickly. One of the big benefits of the wet palette is that you take some paint out of your pot, or you squeeze it out of a squeeze bottle, depending on what kind of brand you're using, and then you put it on the wet palette, and then it will stay wet the entire time that you're painting. So when I first started painting, I would, because I'd always heard, oh, you got to thin your paints, I'm like, all right. So I'd take some paint out of my pot, and you do want to thin your paints, and I would put it on, like, I had a full blown, just like a ceramic tile. So I would put it onto the ceramic tile. I'd grab a little water on my thing, kind of swoosh it all around, and then, like, in a minute, that paint would be dry, and then I'd have to go get some more paint and go that way. Wet palette allows that paint to stay hydrated for quite a long time. Now, some people will say, yeah, but when I come back to my wet palette 3 days later, the paint's all separated on the paper. Well, yeah, that's going to generally happen. But what the wet palette's really good for is keeping your paint wet and thinned while you're painting, not for the rest of time. You know what I mean? If you want to do that, then you should look into painting with oils, because oils take forever to dry. But acrylics will dry. But if you keep them hydrated underneath like that with a wet palette, they will eventually separate, just like they separate in your squeeze bottles or in your pots. You have to shake those things before you squeeze it out because they'll have separated. It separates on the wet palette. If you come back like a week later and your paint looks weird and separated, that's because it did the exact same thing it does in the pots. It's just the way it works. Dave Rockefeller says, Adam, what box could I gift to a newbie friend to start Kill Team? I want something easy to play and easy to paint. Space Marines, maybe. Well, yeah. So they've got those 2 starters that are coming out. They're going to be there's a Kill Team one and an Orc one. Let me go to that page. Here, not that. So yeah, like this one here from, if you were going to go Space Marines, it comes with some Reavers. So they're basically the Primaris version of Scouts, and they're called Reavers. You don't have to paint them here they've got them painted and they're showing them off like they are Space Wolves. But if you notice, there's no special Space Wolf iconography or anything like that going on there. Yeah, you've got like the decals and stuff, but your friend could paint them however they want to paint them. Plus, it also comes with a little bit of terrain, so that's sort of fun. And then it comes with, data cards and tokens and all that jazz. They would still need the main book and that kind of stuff. But if you already had the main book and you had the terrain and you just wanted to be able to come over and play with you and stuff like that, this would be a good thing probably to go with, most likely. And then that way, if they're interested in Space Marines and stuff like that, they could easily go that direction. It would work out quite well. Just resetting all my junk here. All right. Hey, I'm having a hard time coming up with a Necron kill team. They just feel samey war gear and personality-wise. How can I make my kill team feel like mine? True story. Last night I was sitting on the couch, had some YouTube stuff running on the TV, and I was going through the book and trying to make a Necron force, a kill team, because and you're very right. They don't have a lot of options. So let me see if I can find it real quick. It's here on my iPad. Okay, so for my Necron list, I've got 3 Immortals, 1 Deathmark, and 3 Warriors. So the Warriors only come with Gauss Flares. That's all they can do. The Deathmark only comes with the Synaptic Disintegrator. That's all that he can do. I mean, I'm assuming it's a he. I could be wrong. And then the Immortals can either have the Gauss Blasters or the Tesla Carbines. The thing that's interesting is that all these weapons are free. Like, there's no cost for any of these weapons, and that's just sort of the way it works. I haven't decided. I'm definitely going 2 Gauss Blasters on 2 of the Immortals, and then the 3rd Immortal, I'm either going to use Tesla Carbine or I'm going to use the Gauss Blaster. I'm not sure. But one of those Immortals will be my leader, and I think the Deathmark guy, who's more of your sniper-y type dude, I don't know if I'm going to make him Sniper or if I'm going to make him Demolition. I'm trying to figure that one out. The Specialists, or Specialisms, as they say on the website for it, because I think it's a UK word. I've never heard the word specialism specifically. But yeah, I mean, you're right. As far as like just trying to make them look different, I mean, you could paint them little different colors. You can do some like, markings on them or something like that. Anything from just like different colored shoulder pads to kind of differentiate them. I've thought about for if my Deathmark if I do go with Demolition on him, I might try to find some other types of explosive bits, things that look like extra missiles and junk like that, and maybe put them on him. I'm not sure. My Warriors are just going to be straight up Warriors because they're already painted, and they're painted up as like totally generic. Like, they're silver. They've got the green thing. I've followed like to a T pretty much the normal look for Warriors, but I haven't painted up any Deathmarks or Immortals yet, so I want to maybe get a little bit fancier with them and do some, like, I almost feel like the Warriors are just basically like complete drones, you know what I mean? At least in my idea, they're going to be more just drones, whereas the Immortals and Deathmarks have got a little bit more personality. So there's that. I mean, you can do that kind of stuff as far as a modeling perspective. As far as list building, yeah, there's not like, I think I figured it out. I could run like maybe 8 Warriors just straight and then just have nothing else going on, no other fanciness. And that'd be something you could, that would almost be like a TIE fighter swarm, you know what I mean? Like for X-Wing. But you're just trying to get as many guys in there as you can under the points limit. But yeah, it'd be interesting to try out. I would love to do like an open play kind of scenario where I just take, I think I have 10 or 12 Warriors painted. Although I think one of them got broke. I might have to glue him back together. But I think it'd be fun just to take a whole bunch of Warriors, just identical Warriors, and not really give them any of the specialisms. And then have the other kill team person have to like go through and kind of take them all out or fend them off or something like that. Some sort of scenario like that I think would be a lot of fun. Yeah. Jay Kookie says, is there any good brands of white paint? I've tried 2 pots of ceramite white, and both of them have ended up turning into pots of white chalk, even after adding Lamium medium. I generally go with, especially for white, I go with Vallejo. So if you can find a store near you that handles Vallejo paints, I would definitely look into that. If not, go online. Like there's a couple stores near me that carry Vallejo sometimes. They're more hobby stores and less game stores, but they don't seem to carry any of the airbrush line, so I end up usually having to order the airbrush colors or the surface primer for your airbrush primer for your Vallejo stuff. I end up having to order that frequently from Amazon or someplace like that. So if you don't have any place around you that carries Vallejo, I would definitely take a look at that. But Vallejo white, I've always been happy with the whites for that, because yeah, I know what you mean. Sometimes the GW ones, those pots can be a little chunky. What I usually normally use GW white paint for is when I need to do a bunch of white dry brushing, because then it's already a little, not chalky, but it's a little tacky, and so you just dip your brush in there and then you brush it off on a piece of white, paper towel or whatever, and then it works great for dry brushing. If they sell a white dry paint, which is designed for dry brushing, you will open it and it will just be like a piece of chalk in there. I mean, I've never opened one of those that has actually had any fluid in it. They have a tendency to dry out terribly. I actually use the base or the layer versions of white and then use them as my dry brushing. So yeah, I mean, I have okay luck with a bunch of different GW paints, and GW washes are still pretty much my jam. But that being said, motorcycle. That being said, I do for dry brushing, I like my paint to be a little bit drier, so I do. It works out nicely that way. But if you want a decent white, I would tell you to look at Vallejo. I'm also seeing some people saying that P3 white is also very good. I own a few P3 paints, and I wish I owned more. I should look into it more. Sam's a big fan. He's got zillions of P3 paints. If you watch any of the videos, he's usually using P3 paints. JP Got Rockets is backing me up here, saying Reaper or Vallejo makes nice whites. I don't think I have a Reaper. Well, I have a Reaper white brush-on primer that I use. Frequently when like you prime something real dark, but then you need to paint like, say, like Caucasian flesh or something that like a shoulder pad that needs to be yellow, then I will first hit it with a layer of the Reaper white brush-on primer, like of the head or the shoulder pad, and then I will start painting the colors that I need over the top of that. Like if you try to paint like a pale flesh color over black primer, it looks like garbage. But if you start by throwing on a white, not just straight white paint, but what's Reaper's white brush-on primer, it's a nice base layer, and then you start with like a darker flesh tone, and then you highlight up a little bit with a lighter flesh tone, and then you do maybe some dry brushing with a white, or you throw a wash in there. You can kind of go that direction too. So yeah. Joe says Adam, Hobbytown in Green Bay has a pretty huge Vallejo selection. Yeah, the Hobbytown in Oshkosh, where I live, has pretty much all the model air and game air colors, but I'm sorry, not air. Model color and game color colors. So the model color line from Vallejo is all for more military style modeling. So there's a lot of different shades of olive drab, and there's a lot of, all that kind of stuff. Much more realistic colors. That's the model color line. Game color is a lot more brightly colored stuff that you would use in Space Marines, Elven Princesses, all that kind of stuff. And that's that. But the one, at least in Oshkosh, does not carry any of the air version of that line. So model air and game air are the same colors, but they're just pre-thinned basically, and you can drop them right into your airbrush cup thingy. Yeah, so there's that. So yeah, I go to my local shop here when I need to get Vallejo colors, but not if I need to get air versions or the air primer and stuff like that, then I got to go online. Sadly, I wish I could just convince them to take the entire air line here too, but yeah. What else have we got? Torch says, I've never opened a GW dry brush paint that wasn't a rock of paint. Yeah, no, I did the same thing recently. Apollonios? I'm pronouncing that very wrong, I'm sorry. Have you looked upon a Song of Ice and Fire from Cool Mini or Not? I watched a demo of it, either at Adepticon, I think it was at Adepticon this year. I watched a demo of it. I have some friends who went in heavy on it. One of them specifically being Terry Latorco. You've seen probably her channel. She's been on my channel before. Years ago, we did a video about what's wrong with GW, and then this year at Adepticon, because things have done a 180, we did a video about what's right with GW. And she's got her own channel, and she's a writer for Geek and Sundry and things like that. She's a huge ISIS or game Song of Ice and Fire game fan. Another friend of mine from Milwaukee did the Kickstarter, and all that stuff just showed up. I'm only up to about season 4 on the Game of Thrones TV show. My wife's read all the books. It's fine. The models look really good. My main issue, and it's just a personal preference, is I don't generally enjoy rank and flank games. So games when you're moving trays, of like rectangular trays full of figures into each other, I just don't enjoy those. It's just a play style that I don't like. Other people obviously, do because, King's War does it. Ninth Age still does it. Rune Wars, though I don't know that anybody actually plays that, but Rune Wars did it, and this Song of Ice and Fire. I mean, it makes sense from a historical standpoint because that's the way that the battles kind of would have been fought, but it's just a play style that I don't enjoy, so I didn't pull the trigger or anything like that. Yeah, but the models do look quite pretty, so. Yanosaurus Rex says that Sam uses P3 because it tastes the yummiest. I think that might be the case, partially, but I think it's also because I've always heard good things about the pigments. Like, the pigments are quite good, and the pots are pretty solid. And also, I think when he won the Grandmaster Award at Gen Con several years back, I think they gave him all of the paints. They just were like, here you go, and just dumped a giant box of paint on top of him. And then he had to pick it all up and then put it into a backpack or something, and he didn't know they were going to do that. I'm kidding. They shipped it to him. But nonetheless, he's got just so much P3 because of winning that Grandmaster Award at Gen Con. But yeah, so it's... and he does actually really like it, too. And like I said, he has gotten me... It's caused me to buy some. Like, I've got, I think, a couple of metallics, and I've got a couple of flesh tones, but... I haven't painted a lot of flesh tone stuff lately, so that's been one of the reasons. Well, I take that back. I did use it when I painted my those dudes for Shadespire, the corn guys that came in the main box, blood dudes. I can't remember their names off the top of my head, but I used a bunch of those flesh tones. I do have a couple different flesh tones from them, Caucasian-y style flesh tones, and I've used some of that on those, so I have used them a bit. JP Got Rockets says, Adam, have you ever been to the Oshkosh Fly-In? Yes. I worked for the company that runs it for 8 years. So for 9 years, I was there for 20 days straight because we would start working and then not have weekends off for a while. So for 20 days straight, I would be there 12 to 16 hours a day. I don't work for them anymore. I stopped working for them in 2015, and I have not been back since. So that's sort of nice. It's actually starting today. For those of you who don't know, there's this organization called the Experimental Aircraft Association, and they have the world's largest fly-in and convention, and it happens here in the little town that I live in. It's called Air Venture. The town I live in is called Oshkosh, but the event is called Air Venture. Anyway, it starts literally, I think, today and goes this entire week. Our town's about 75,000 people, and about 500,000 people come to this convention. So, yeah, it'll be nonstop airplane noise for the next week. Airplanes from all over the world. The Whitman Regional Airport becomes the busiest airport in the world for a week. And there's not even radar. We don't even have... Yeah, there's no radar here. It's an amazing thing. If you get the chance... Go do a Google search for Air Venture, and you'll see some amazing stuff. But yeah, I haven't been back since I stopped working there because it's really busy, and I've been doing other stuff. So, but yeah, it's an amazing thing. If you're into airplanes at all, it's the Gen Con. It's way bigger though, but it's the Gen Con of airplane stuff. And yeah, if you get a chance and you're into airplanes, you should definitely stop on by. Bony Bones Jones says, or asks technically, can you talk more about your Death Guard team? What are the customization options like? Well, Death Guard, there's lots of customization. Let's see what I did, shall we? We did that. Gonna do here. Nope. Back up. Flipping pages on my virtual iPad. Well, it's a real iPad, but it's virtual pages. All right, so I've got a Plague Champion who has... Nope, screw that up. That's the wrong page. That was a copy. There we go. Nope, that's Death Watch, not Death Guard. All right, there we go. Plague Champion with Plasma Gun, Power Fist, and Plague Sword. And he costs 22 points. And then I've got a Plague Marine Gunner with the Blight Launcher. And he's going to be my heavy specialist. And he's 18 points. Then I got 3 Bog Standard Plague Marines. They are 14 points each. And then I'm going to have a Plague Marine Fighter who's going to have a Bubotic Axe. And he is my Zealot And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm going to probably throw one more specialist in there, but I haven't decided yet how or what I'm going to do. Maybe comms. Communications is nice because it allows you to, every turn to give. At level 1, communications allows you to give another person on the team basically +1 to hit with a shooting weapon. So I'm not sure yet which I'm going to do on that. But as far as customization, there's a lot of different stuff going on with the kill team. Just because it's the same thing with Thousand Suns too. Thousand Suns have got a lot of custom stuff that they can do because that's kind of their jam. Let me see here. Plague Marines. You've got Blight Grenades, Blight Launchers, Bolt Pistol, Bolt Gun, Crack Grenade, Melt-A-Gun, Plague Belcher, Plague Spewer. See, it's a fine line between spewing and belching. You've got your Plasma Gun and your Plasma Pistol. And then on melee weapons, you've got Bubotic Axe, Flail of Corruption, Great Plague Cleaver, Improvised Weapon, which is what the Poxwalkers carry, Mace of Contagion, Plague Knife, Plague Sword, and Power Fist. And then in War Gear, the only War Gear you have is the Icon of Despair. So, yeah, that's one of the things about the Death Guard Plague Marines is that they have lots of customization options, which is really nice. They are normally just armed with a Plague Knife, a Bolt Gun, a Blight Grenades, and Crack Grenades. But if you have a gunner, he can replace their Bolt Gun with a Plague Spewer, Plague Belcher, Blight Launcher, Melt-A-Gun, or Plasma Gun. Space Marine or a Plague Marine fighter can replace their Bolt Gun with one of the following: Bubotic Axe, Great Plague Cleaver, or Flail of Corruption, a second Plague Knife, or a Mace of Contagion and Bubotic Axe. I didn't have the points to do that, so I just went with just the Bubotic Axe. Plague Champion may replace their Plague Knife with a Plague Sword for free. I think it's for free. Yep. Plague Champion may replace their Bolt Gun with a Bolt Pistol, Plasma Pistol, or Plasma Gun, which is awesome because the model that I've got, he's got the Plasma Gun like slung over his back, and then he's got the Power Fist in one hand, and he's got the Plague Sword in the other, so that's sweet. Plague Champion may also take a Power Fist, thank you. And one Plague Marine in your kill team may take an Icon of Despair, which that has a point cost to it. I forget what it was, like 3 or 4. So I did not take that. 3 for the Icon of Despair. But I wish I had the points to do so, but I don't. So, yeah, the Plague Guard stuff is very cool, and there's a lot of customization, and I'm sure that I haven't really looked very closely at it because I don't have any Thousand Suns models, but I'm sure that the customization for Thousand Sun models is also got a lot. You know, there's probably a lot of those as well. Different, the Rubric Marines have got all kinds of crazy crap they can do. So, plus psychic stuff. There's really no psychic stuff much at all in Plague, in Death Guard. Yeah. Anyway, so that's where that's at. Let's see. No Poxwalkers. I just wanted to go straight, Plague Marines in my list. I don't have any Poxwalkers built. That's part of the problem too. I had some Plague Marines already started, and I looked at them and went, I can make these work, and then I built some other ones and added them in, and they're cool. And the Poxwalkers, I have some because they came in the Dark Imperium box, but I just didn't build them. I don't like their faces. Like, I just don't like... I understand why they're doing it, but they all have that goofy grin on their face, and I just kind of don't like it. So, I don't know. At some point I might do that, but we'll see that. AJ says that spewing is vomit and belching is burping. Totally different things. Well, it depends on how hard you burp. There are times when you start a burp and then you end with a spew, and you didn't mean to, but that's the fine line I'm talking about there. You gotta watch yourself. Plasma Painting says, greetings from Chicagoland. Greetings. Has Battlescribe added Kill Team yet? Probably not. We actually had a small conversation about this yesterday at the little club thing I was at, and generally the belief is they like to wait at least until the game comes out so they don't get in trouble. So yeah, most likely that probably won't happen until next week. But hopefully it will, because it would be just nice. I like Battlescribe. I wish that Games Workshop would make their own decent army builder, like a good one, but they don't want to, and I don't know why. I can't understand the math behind that. I don't get it business-wise. But like Battlescribe is pretty good, but it has a very steep learning curve At least with like 40K now with detachments and stuff like that, it took me quite a while to figure out how the heck to add detachments in it, because it's not, as a person who works in user experience and user interface, it's not clear in their setup, and I do wish that it was a little bit better on their end. There's a bunch of stuff about that, interactions that don't make sense to me at first blush, and so I do wish that they would kind of tweak those things, but I do support it. I like pay for it because I don't want to see the ads. Yeah, anyway. So I'm hoping they do make one army builder type thing for Kill Team in Battlescribe. But I would also really love it if just GW would make a decent one, so that you could just do it that way too. Like they could even just make it web based, and then you could just build your kill teams right there on the web and print out a sheet. I mean, it's not. I know we could do it at work. You know what I mean? So. Tay Jamo says, so I came back to the hobby after nearly a 10-year break, basically to play the relaunch of Necromunda. How do the kill teams differ really, or is it just going to be a gateway drug for, for full fat 40K? I mean, a lot of the stuff is the same with 40K to some degree. Here's the big differences. So when you start a round, let's say you start the first round, you roll for initiative. Let's say you're playing 2-player game. So each of you rolls 2d6. And there is no stealing initiative. Oh, hey, Blake. I see Blake is here too. Neat. Okay, so there's no stealing initiative. So you roll for initiative, and it's 2d6. And then you get to the movement phase. The person who won initiative moves all of their figures first. And then the next person, like if you're playing a multiplayer game, it could go up to 4 players. But let's say you're just playing a 2-player game. The other person now moves all their stuff. So right there, we've split from 40K a couple of times. There's no stealing initiative. And secondly, you normally in 40K, when it's one person's turn, they run through all the phases and do all their stuff, and then it becomes the other person's turn, and then they run through all the phases. In this, the person who won initiative moves, and then the person who lost initiative does their movement. And now we move into psychic, and then we see if there's any psychic. And the person whose initiative it is, they do their psychic, and then you alternate back and forth. So if I had 3 psychics and you had 2, I would do one, you would do one, I would do one, you would do one, and then I would do the last one. You don't have any more. When you get into shooting, it's the same deal. It's not like the person who won initiative shoots all their guys, and then the other guy shoots all their guys. It is... First of all, anyone who didn't move in the movement phase is considered to be readied, which means they get to fire before people who did move. So you'd start out, and it would be the person whose initiative it is. They would look for any of their models that are readied and fire one of them. And then your opponent would have a model that was readied, let's say, and then they'd fire it. Now, if the opponent didn't have a model that was readied, or if, let's say, the person who started with initiative didn't have any readied models because all their models were hauling ass, then the person whose turn or whose initiative it is not would technically get to make the first shot because they had a person who stood still last turn. Okay, so you go through all the readied models back and forth, and then it comes to the non-readied models, and these are the models that moved. And again, it starts with the person whose initiative turn it is. So then they would go, and then it would alternate back and forth, and that's how the shooting phase is done, which is wildly different than the way it's done in 40K. Then you move into... And you would also do advances during this time. You'd actually do the advances during movement. It's not like the old days where you ran during the shooting phase. You just actually chose to do an advance in the movement phase. I forgot about that. And then you can't really shoot in the shooting phase. Then you do the charging, and then you go through that. And then there's the fighting phase, which again is alternating back and forth, one person, back and forth. And again, units who charged, they get to attack first. And it's kind of like the ready thing from shooting. And then you go into nerve tests, morale, whatever, and then you're done. And then the turn is done. And then you both roll for initiative again. It's not like normal 40K where you roll initiative at the beginning of the game. This is the reason you can't steal initiatives, because it's not set in stone from the beginning of the game. You can't see my hand over there. And then it's every turn, like in Age of Sigmar. Now, people complain in Age of Sigmar about how, but if you went last turn and you go first the next turn, it's like you got to do 2 turns in a row. That's mitigated in Kill Team because each phase is so much different like that. If it turns out that I have the initiative now, that just means that I get to move I get to move my guys before you move your guys, but when it comes to shooting, I get to shoot one guy before you shoot a guy. So it's not as big of a deal, but it still has little tweaks and kind of helps it and does things like that. A lot of I'm not going to lie, portions of Kill Team are designed to teach you more about 40K. If you play Kill Team and you've never played any of those other games before, and then you play it for like a while, and then a friend of yours is like, hey, let's come over and play. I've got a second army for regular 40K. Let's play a 1,500 point battle. You would pick up on it relatively quickly. I feel like you might be like, it'd be really nice if during the shooting phase we got to alternate, and you'd be like, yeah, that's not how it works. In 40K, it's like, I'll do all my shooting on my turn, and then I'll move to this phase, and then I'll move to this phase, and then I'll move to, and then it will be your turn. So that may actually be a little bit of a bummer. And there's a potential here. If you look at see how things have been going lately with Games Workshop, you see stuff that they put into Age of Sigmar that turned up in 8th edition 40K. And you see things that they're doing here showing up in other things. So potentially, some of the things that we're finding in Kill Team now might bleed their way into 40K if they make like an update, like with the not General's Handbook, Chapter Approved. There might be a Chapter Approved update for 2019 that will have a bunch of new things that will have been almost as if kind of beta tested and pulled in from Kill Team. We might see that. So, yeah, it is not the same game as 40K. It's got some very interesting differences, but it has a lot of the same, like the stat lines all look almost identical in most situations to the same stat lines from 40K, except that for all the figures, there at the end there's another little category right past like leadership and stuff like that, and saving or armor save, and that is max. If there's a dash there, that means you can have as many of those guys in your army as you want. But if it says max 1, max 2, max 3, then of that particular type, you can only have that many in your army. So you're limited. You can't just decide to go all gunners. You know what I mean? Like most of these armies will have like a gunner limit of 1 or 2, whereas technically Imperial Guard has a higher gunner limit, but their guys are all generally a little bit cheaper points wise, a little bit weaker, but they can have more heavier, not heavy gunners, but they can have more guys carrying plasma or grenade launchers or whatever. So yeah, so there's a lot of similarities, but there are some also very interesting differences. So it is not 40K just run small. It has got some definite differences, but a lot of the rules and a lot of that kind of stuff, the stat lines, most of the weapons are very much the same, but not all. Like plasma guns have a little bit different text about what happens when you roll a 1 and you've overcharged. That makes it so that you kind of just you basically become out of action. You know what I mean? Like how there's little wording changes that you have to be kind of if you're a 40K player, you can't just assume that it does this. You have to pay a little bit more attention sometimes on some of those little wording changes. We came across one of those yesterday. So. But it's very interesting. What else have we got? A lot of talking going on here. That's cool. Talking about Army Painter. Ad K says, I can't fathom why GW wouldn't want to build an app like Privateer Press has for War Machines are weird. It angers me to no end coming as the next War Machine player. Yeah. I mean, they have an app kind of like for Age of Sigmar. They've got an army builder that's built into the Age of Sigmar app. The Age of Sigmar app is actually quite nice. I wish they had something exactly like it for 40K, but they don't. Maybe they'll make a Kill Team app that might be kind of cool. If they made a Kill Team app that had all the stuff in it, I would be interested in that. But I haven't seen anything so far, and I don't know why they kind of stay away from that stuff. I don't know if they really just want you to be doing it all in pen and paper. But I would think that, like, one of the great things about Age of Sigmar and the Age of Sigmar app is that I can be sitting on the toilet looking at my phone and looking at new units and deciding on, after reading the rules for that unit, I could add that to my army. That'd be really great. Like, you can't do that with any other game much, generally. You know what I mean? Like, at least from Games Workshop. You can't be sitting there unless you brought the codex in with you into the bathroom and you're like, well, here. But like, I can even be looking at stuff from other armies. Like, when you don't have to buy the codex and when everything's just available to you there in the app, it's really easy to go through and decide to buy more models, which is really kind of what they're trying to get you to do. Obviously, they're a business. They need to feed people, who work there. So the fact that when they moved to 8th edition, that was the one, I think, big misstep that they made with 8th edition was that they didn't make it so that, you still had to buy the codex books and you still had to buy the, Now, there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, but I love the codexes. They got all kinds of cool fluff. Well, they still make battle tomes for Age of Sigmar. So they still make battle tomes for all the armies. But if you don't want them because you don't want the fluff and the painting guides and the extra, battalion fancy rules. If you just want the war scrolls, you can just download them all. And then that will cause you to spend more money on models and less on books, if you're that kind of person. But there's the other kind of person who loves the books and loves the physicality of the books, and that's great. But yeah, so I kind of, when they first announced that, I remember being at an event in Madison, Wisconsin, a distributor conference, and I talked to a couple of the guys from GW afterwards, and I'm like, and I told him, and the guy like literally said to me, he's like, it was a business decision to do it this way in 40K as opposed to the way we did it in Age of Sigmar. So that's where that's at. I mean, it's understandable to some degree, but they did still put the core rules for 40K out as a free download. So if you at least get to like go through without having to buy the book, since the books are generally always shrink wrapped at the store these days. You could just go through and read the rules and be like, oh, that's really cool. I can do this and that and the other thing, and now I see how this works. And then you can make a decision on pulling the trigger. They never used to do that before. So, Electric Dragon, I'm probably assuming that's what that says. Apps like that can cost a lot to update and maintain. You are not wrong. I work for a company, and that's the type of stuff we do, is mobile apps for companies and websites and things like that. And they can. But I think that the ROI, I think the return on investment for how much they'd spend on that app versus what they would get in return from people like me sitting there, like on the bus. I don't really go on the bus, but lots of people go on the bus or the train and public transportation. They're sitting there on their phone and they're looking at like army lists, and they're trying to figure out what kind of things they might want to add to their army, or if they want to start a completely new army for Age of Sigmar. I can tell you for sure that app has caused me to buy models that I wouldn't have bought if I had to pull out the book and flip through pages and try to figure that stuff out. So I think it can work. Blake says that Age of Sigmar doesn't really have any war gear, which makes it easy. That's true. There's a lot less customization. Yeah, I mean, like in a lot of the forces you have, like my Chaos Warriors, you either take them with like this thing, or you take them with this thing, or you take them with this thing. Like you either get two hand weapons, like a sword and a pike, or not a sword, sorry, a shield and a pike, or like a weapon and a shield. That's kind of like, that's it. And then you have like maybe one guy who's playing an instrument, one guy who's a banner carrier. That's about it. There's not a lot of like, oh, this guy's got crack grenades and this and that, and this guy's got a missile launcher. So yeah, it's not that same way, which does make it a bit easier. Battlescribe does work once you figure out how it works. It does technically work, and I've never really come across anything where I'm like, I should be able to add, according to the rules, I should be able to add a plasma pistol to this guy, and the app won't let me. It's always been like right when a new version comes out, sometimes there's little glitches and things they didn't quite catch, but once it's been out for a little bit, it usually almost always works perfectly. So, but yeah, you're right. 40K definitely has more customization and stuff like that in comparison to Age of Sigmar. That's very true. Mr. Dorv says, is the kill team case a good buy? If you don't have any, not a fan of the design, but still looks like a good solution to take a team with you. I don't know. I'm getting it. Let me quick move to this thing, and here. I'll go there. So yeah, this thing down here. I'm getting one. I think it looks kind of cool personally, and like I said before, I do like, not the zipper. I like this design for foam in a lot of situations, because when you get like if you get fancy laser cut foam from companies, sometimes that's great if you have a very specific sort of spindly kind of character that you need to carry around, or if you have a very specific army, or you've been doing it for a while and you're like, this is my army and I'm not changing. But when you're like, I need to be able to take these 6 guys out and put these 8 guys in, because I'm going and playing with a different group of people and I'm taking a different game or a different, different list, anything like that, these types of foam things, like you can fit tall guys in there or short guys in there. I mean, you can't put a rhino in there, you can't put vehicles in this kind of stuff very easily, but for figures, it gives you a lot of flexibility, because the thing is that like the glue, let me do this, the glue around here, or the foam is glued to the under layer of foam around the edges, but these dividery bits here are not glued down. So you can squish some farther apart and squeeze some closer together when needs be, depending on what kind of models are going in there. And then when you close it, it should hopefully hold them and they don't get underneath, the bits there. I don't know. I like this stuff. Not everybody does, but I do. I've got one of those hard plastic cases that has this foam in it that's maybe, I don't know, it's maybe a foot wide by, it's real chunky looking. It's real thick. It's almost like a cube, but it's like a foot by maybe like 9 inches by 8 inches or something like that. And then a couple years ago at Adepticon, if you got the fancy swag bag, it came with like a big, hard, not bulletproof, but very strong case that came mostly with stuff like this. And then I think there was a layer of pluck and pick or whatever that perforated stuff is, so you could put your vehicles in there. But all the troop trays were like this style. So if you just want to be able to take something that's not too big and bulky and be able to carry and keep your guys protected, and you're taking like a single kill team in there, I don't think this is a bad deal. And like I said, I ordered one because I think it's cool, and I'm a dork like that. But anyway, oh, I goofed up the chat. What did I do? There we are. Okay. Rain says, "Hey Adam, now that I catch you live, I want to thank you for all your content. I've always been a board gamer, but thanks to you and Vince Venturella, I found the courage to start painting." Well, I'm glad to hear it. Vince is a good guy. He's a super good painter and teaches, I think, quite well. He got to teach classes at Adepticon last year. I think it was for the first time, so he got to teach classes there. So that was a lot of fun. Sam got to too last year too. I'm already looking forward to next year's Adepticon. I've got my room, so that's cool. I know a lot of people had trouble with it because I think just more and more people want to go to Adepticon. So I was like, they were like, okay, we're going to have rooms. We're going to start, the website's going to go live to start selling rooms at noon Central Time on whatever day it was. And I was there at 11:59, on the computer, just like, come on. And so, yeah, luckily I was able to get in there, but I'm really looking forward to it. What else? And Rain says, and now I ended up buying Soul Wars set, even though I've never played miniatures games. Well, that'll give you a lot of miniatures to work on. Absolutely. It's a good set. And I'm glad to hear that you're playing. Where else? Okay, now I'm catching back up. Matthew Sears says, if you need a scale reference, Adam's head is 2.5 regular heads. That's not technically true. It's like 1.5 though. All that probably. It's a big head. I have a large head. I'm not gonna lie. Carrie says, hi Uncle Adam, great show. Will Kill Team come with pre-made teams like Necromunda? Well, I mean, if you buy the big box set, you're going to get a set of 10 Skitarii, Vanguards, or Rangers, depending on how you build them, and you'll get a set of 10 Genestealer Cultists, Neophyte, somethings, hybrids maybe? I don't know. Some sort of Genestealer Cultists. So you get those guys built in there, and you can build them in a bunch of different ways and sort of customize them the way you want. They will also be releasing these box sets that'll cost like $60 that will have a kind of pre-built army in them and also some terrain. So the first two that they're going to be shipping at launch are going to be Space Marines, and they're basically Primaris Reavers, which are like kind of the scout versions or the terror troops, they say, of the Primaris. And the other box is Orcs, and each of them comes with a little bit of terrain and some stuff and whatever. So yeah, you've got some of that going on. Brian Schmidt says that orange and black/gray is my jam. See, yeah, I think it's well designed visually too. I mean, personally, I would prefer black and red because that's my thing. But yeah, it's yeah. Rusty McNally says, do you think GW could ever have a subscription package where you pay a certain amount per month and receive a discount on figures purchased with that money as long as you kept paying every month? Kind of like putting them on retainer. I don't know how many people would be super into it, but maybe they would be. It's kind of like almost like a membership loyalty plan or something like that. Maybe. I mean, I know plenty of stores do things kind of like that. My local store doesn't do like where you pay and then you get a discount. It's more of a, for every $100 you spend, you get like a $15 coupon. So, and it's like done through their point of sale system. They use Square, And so for every $100 you spend, then you get like a text that says, "Oh, hey, you got a $15 off coupon." And then next time you come in, you can use that and then get $15 off. And so but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that GW has any plans to do that, anything like that. I'm not sure. The new painter says, I did want to go to Adepticon this year, but I didn't know when rooms were released. It doesn't look like I'll make it. Now, if you want to stay in the exact same building, that will be difficult. But there are plenty of hotels around Adepticon that are like seriously like across a parking lot. They're not far away at all. Embassy Suites is one that I can think of. I've not stayed there, but I've got friends who've stayed there. So there are plenty of hotels around it that are not far away that you can easily walk to or to and from. And there's options like that. So if you're interested, you could stay. Matthew Sears is mentioning the Hyatt Regency as well. That's another one. So yeah, you could definitely do that kind of stuff and stay very close by, and then not have to go through all the rigmarole. I just want to stay in the building so that I can like head up to the room and head back down. I don't know, like because I'm bringing so much equipment. You know, if I had to hump back and forth to get new batteries or to dump off a memory card and stuff like that, that's sort of a pain. So just being able to go upstairs, do it, and it's fine. But if you're going to the convention to play games and be in tournaments and buy things in the vendors area and hang out and have a good time and take classes, which is really awesome there, then just having to walk back to the hotel when you need to for whatever reason is not too bad. So definitely take a look at that, the Noob Painter. What else have we got? GW said on the stream that Necromunda is basically a different universe than Kill Team. No plan at all to allow gangers in Kill Team. Well, that seems untrue. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying that you're lying. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying that it's. I mean, all of 40K stuff has always been kind of in the same universe per se. But I could easily see where they would not make points and stat lines and things like that for gangers to bring them into Kill Team. Like Kill Team is supposed to be a lot more of a military engagement, higher stakes kind of a thing, whereas Necromunda is more of gangs fighting with each other on like one planet generally. I mean, it could be, but so yeah, that could make sense. I could see that definitely. But technically, it should all be happening in the 40K universe. Maybe that's just a different word there. So yeah. Guy Watkins says, "Hi, Adam. Just tuning in. Sorry if it's been covered, but do you know if Chaos Marks and Icons have the same effect as an 8th edition, or is there a new rule for them?" The marks are pretty much just the same. Like, they're just basically like, oh, now you have the keyword. And there's not a lot of extra stuff there. Yeah, Mark of Chaos. When you add a model with the Mark of Chaos keyword to your kill team, you can choose to replace it with the following keyword: Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, or Slaanesh. Or you can choose for it to have no mark. If you choose a mark, note this on the model's data card. So that's pretty much it. There's no like instant benefit that I can see. But if you have one of the Chaos icons, you have Wrath, Flame, Despair, Excess, and Vengeance. Wrath is for Khorne, Flame is for Tzeentch, Despair is for Nurgle, Excess is for Slaanesh, and Vengeance is for no mark or unmarked. Icon of Wrath for Khorne, basically you get to reroll charge rolls within 6 inches of the icon. The Icon of Flame at the start of your turn in the Psychic phase, roll d6 for each model from your kill team equipped with the Icon of Flame. On a 6, inflict 1 mortal wound to the closest enemy model within 12 inches of the model being rolled, so that's sort of fun. Icon of Despair, subtract 1 from the leadership characteristic of enemy models within 6 inches of any models equipped with the Icon of Despair, so that's sort of fun. That's one of the big benefits that we noticed yesterday of Necrons, is it's almost impossible to get them shaken because they're all leadership 10. They're just like, yeah, no, I'm not scared because I'm a robot, so that's sort of fun. Icon of Excess, Death to the False Emperor ability of models within 6 inches of any friendly models equipped with Icon of Excess takes an effect on 5 up rather than 6 up. And Icon of Vengeance, add 1 to the leadership characteristics of all models within 6 inches of any friendly models equipped with the Icon of Vengeance. So there's I think maybe a little bit of modification there, and some of it's just a little bit of wording, but it's not, I don't think, drastic. Let's see here. Kill Team is not the elite of the elite, though. Adeptus Mechanicus doesn't even have veterans. Or is that Adeptus Militarum? Sorry, Astra Militarum. No, the Astra Militarum is pretty... They're basically, it's either Scions or regular dudes. So, but I did build a list with a lot of grenade launchers just for fun, and some Scions as well. The new painter says the Death Guard have their super elite Poxwalkers, the most crack of the crack commandos. I think that's not true. I mean, there's Poxwalkers, but I think that they're basically doofuses, smiling doofuses, and they're all pretty much the same. You could name them. You could make one of them like a demo expert, though. Actually, that'd be hysterical to have your entire list, like have all your Plague Marines and then all your Poxwalkers on. Well, not all. It wouldn't be that many. But if you had a bunch of Poxwalkers and then some Plague Marines, but like... Can a Poxwalker be a leader? That's a good question. Let's find out. What I need to do is put tabs in this book so I can find the sections quicker. No, Poxwalkers cannot be leaders. So you'd have like one Plague Marine who'd be the leader. Actually, the only specialists the Poxwalker is going to have is Combat or Zealot, which I guess makes sense. Like if they were communications or something, that'd be weird. Yeah. So yeah, I'm afraid that the Poxwalkers are not that elite. So, you know, kind of out of it. Yeah, it's a bummer. Second 2 says, what do you expect for new armies? Sister, Chapter... probably Sisters. When new Sisters plastics get released, I bet they make one of those starter box ones like they do for the Reavers and the Orcs. They'll make one, I bet, one of those for... Sisters, and it will have a set of Sisters inside there, and it will have some terrain of some flavor, and then the cards and all that junk. But I don't know. I'm not sure what else, because I guess there's still Custodes, but the Custodes, I don't know that you would bring them in a kill team. Maybe you would, but they're not in the book. Who else? That's about it. I can't think of really anybody else right now. Well, obviously, like Imperial Knights, that'd be a terrible kill team. Because the knight would be like, I am stuck. I can't walk. There's too much terrain on this table. Yeah. Nick Miller says... Oh, he's talking to somebody else. Hey, Nick. VJ Morph. Nope, that's again a response to somebody else. John Caspian. Hey, John. Hey, Adam, what do you think will be the hardest concept for new players to learn about Kill Team? That is a good question. Hardest concept for new players to learn about Kill Team. Probably the, if I had to guess, and it's not that difficult, it's easier than it used to be, it might be the strength versus toughness thing. So it used to be, if you're just getting into 40k these days, you know that when you're going to shoot a gun or fight a fight, you basically have a 3-up or a 4-up or a 2-up or a 5-up or whatever. Well, it used to be that you had a ballistic skill. So your ballistic skill was 3. Which meant that you subtracted 3 from 7 for reasons, and then that means you hit on 4s and up. Well, they took that out. They're just like, you hit on 4-ups. And that's just, they're doing the math for you. There was no reason for that whole chart in the build, probably, and so they got rid of it. They also tweaked the strength versus toughness chart because it used to be a little squirrely. Now it's much simpler to remember. You don't need to have a big array matrix of like, well, this, and then it comes to, oh, okay, that's what it does. Now it's just like, if strength and toughness are equal, you need 4s. If the strength is higher than the toughness, you need 3s. If the strength is lower than it, you need 5s. And if it's lower by double, you need 6, and it's higher than double, you need 2s. Well, it's pretty simple. That might be one of the more difficult options for people to figure out. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that there's any really difficult pieces to use in that. Maybe the ideas of cover and the modifiers, those are a little different because you don't really have those kind of modifiers and things like that, particularly not the same way. Honestly, the thing that was kind of giving us a little bit of a trouble early on was the flesh wound thing, like the whole mechanic of like, it's not just like, oh, I killed you, you had 1 wound and you're dead. I did a damage to you, you are now at 0 wounds, and now you have a flesh wound. And the flesh wound, well, you may have a flesh wound or you might go to action. The upside there is basically, once you get to 0 wounds, then you roll a die, and on a certain thing you get, okay, I now have a flesh wound, and if on another number you might end up just being out of action. So and the thing is, you could get multiple flesh wounds. Like, you could keep taking damage and just keep getting flesh wound after flesh wound, and then those flesh wounds affect a bunch of your other rolls as well, and things like that. So that part might be kind of difficult for maybe newer people to play with. Like when we were playing, I was giving the demos yesterday, we weren't using any of the specialisms, and we weren't using any of the advanced rules. We were just kind of playing through to get the rhythm for it, and that's a good way to start. And I like the fact that they've got it kind of stepped out like that, where you've got the basic game and then you have advanced rules and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely. Brian Schmidt says, is there a lot of rules gameplay overlap between Age of Sigmar and Kill Team? I know there's obvious thematic differences, but do they play fairly similarly? The Siren's Call of Kill Team is tangible. Not... I mean, all GW games kind of play sort of in the same way. So you've got that going. You have a ballistic and a weapon skill, which basically is, again, like a number, like you hit on 3-ups or you hit on 4-ups or whatever. The difference is with 40k and with Kill Team, it's that strength versus toughness thing, whereas in Age of Sigmar, they're just like you wound on 3s or you wound on 4s. And it doesn't matter what you go up against. In Kill Team and in 40k, if you have a weapon with low strength and you go up against a monster or whatever with high toughness, it is much more difficult for you to wound that monster. They mitigate this in Age of Sigmar by giving big honking monsters, which could get beat on a lot by smaller people who have a fixed, ability to wound them, by giving those guys lots of extra wounds. So you've got something like Glotkin who's got like 16 or 18 wounds. So they can take a lot of damage, but it's because they're going to get it. In 40k, a big creature might not have as many wounds because technically it might be tough enough to kind of bounce a lot of that damage. You know what I mean? So, but a lot of the stuff is basically kind of that same way there. So yeah. Chuck says, hey Adam, Nick and I were talking about how to know what units to buy prior to the book coming out. I would tell you to go look at the faction foci. Anyway, they have these faction focus articles on the what the heck is it called? On the Warhammer community webpage. If you go there and look at it, they've got on pretty much every one of those faction focus articles, they've got a listing of like these are the units that are going to be in there. They've got only a few more left to do. I think they've gone through most of them, but they do have also a chart that shows, they're doing like one a day, I think, and they've got a chart that shows like which ones they're doing and in what order. So go look and see if they've already talked about the faction you're interested in, and if not, take a look in maybe a couple of days. But I'm sure it'll be all done before they get to launch next week, or on Saturday, upcoming Saturday. Johnny Riggs says, hey, Adam, do you think the Kill Team would be good for a 16-year-old? I was thinking of getting my nephew into tabletop games as he thinks it looks cool. Well, if he thinks it looks cool and he likes to do sometimes sort of crafty stuff, or maybe if you're just going to build and paint them all and then just play games with him, you could do that too. And if he's interested, yeah. 16 is easily old enough. I mean, I know plenty of people younger than that who, I started playing BattleTech when I was in middle school, but that was not the building and modeling part because we were just playing with little cardboard standees. But we did, there was all the bookkeeping and the rules and the tiny little dots you were filling in to see if your arm fell off or not and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's totally doable, I think, for a person that age. Anyone know if GW data cards are the same size as Magic the Gathering cards to fit into sleeves? I don't, and I don't have the boxes down in the basement, so I don't have any Magic cards to compare them to or tape measure. So at least not around here. So no, that's not a question that I can answer. I apologize. How does Death Guard Plague Marines look in Kill Team in the book? I've read the faction focus. I like them because they're very customizable. I think that they are more customizable than many of the other armies. Not all, but some of the other armies. So that's one of the reasons why I built a small Kill Team of like 6 Plague Marines. And I did not put in any Poxwalkers. I was talking about that before. I'm going to give it a try and see how it goes. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, let me see what else we got here. Jay Pickle says, quick question, I just started Age of Sigmar and now also want some 40k. I love ruining my opponent's plans in battle. Which factions would suit this? I want to make my opponents say, Khan. Yeah, it's a Star Trek movie, the second movie reference. Oh gosh. Well, I mean, one of the ways you could do it would be to go to Necrons, because Necrons have a reanimation protocol and can frequently get back up after they've gone out of action, kind of, which is a little annoying if you roll well enough. You could also go probably Eldar, because I just find Eldar troublesome in general. So you got that going on. Yeah, I don't know. Those are probably two good options. I know that the Grey Knights are basically all psychers, so that could be, if you wanted to annoy your friends with a lot of extra psychic shenanigans. I mean, there's not a lot there to it, but you basically almost get like a weird free shooting round by being able to use psi bolts or whatever and all that kind of junk, or whatever it's called, mind bullets, I guess. In a phase, if they don't have many psychers or any psychers, you get to have that extra benefit. So there's that too. Let me see. What else? Plague Marines destroyed my Chaos Marines yesterday. 5 of them against my 7. They were unkillable. I'm looking forward to getting them into battle yet. Like I said, I've primed some, and they are... I will... I'm either going to start painting them tonight, or I'm going to build Necrons tonight. I may end up building Necrons tonight. It's just a little too humid right now to paint, so I might just build Necrons and listen to audiobook or podcast, and then maybe start Plague Marines this upcoming week before Gen Con. That's maybe the way it's going to be. Cautious Spices. I just wish BattleTech miniatures looked as good as Citadel. Yeah. At Origins this year, I almost pulled the trigger. I don't know if I told this story or not, but I was walking by the booth for Catalyst Games, and they had a whole bunch of their new First Strike stuff. Alpha Strike. First Strike? Alpha Strike. I don't know. It's the more slightly streamlined, easier version of BattleTech. And so I thought, well, that might be kind of fun. And they had like 7 different boxes of figures, and I think there were 4 to 5 figures per box. They were called, not flights, not squads. I don't know. I can't remember what it's called. The word. Anyway, so yeah. So they had all these boxes of models and stuff like that, and I was talking about it, and we were with the woman who was at the booth, and she's like, "Well, we got a special. Normally these boxes are $20 each, but if you buy all 7 boxes, it was like $50 or something ridiculous like that." And I was like, "Well, that's a very good price." I'm like, "So then how much is the book?" And she's like, "Oh, we don't have the book." I'm like, "So you don't have the instructions, the rules?" She's like, "No, it should be coming in October." And I'm like, I'm just thinking, I'm like, come on, guys, like, how? It's a book. You could get it printed here in America. You really could. As I'm sure that it's probably on a boat right now, or it's still in a factory, and you can get stuff printed in America. You really can. And it will be just as good, easily. I've got friends who work in the printing industry, probably almost as cheap, and also you won't have to wait for it on a boat for 3 months or 6 months or whatever. You could drive there and pick it up, because it's in America. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking about that, but yeah, I wish that BattleTech was better in a couple different areas, and the modeling could be a little bit nicer, I will agree, and being able to actually buy the instruction manual for the game you want to play would also be lovely too. So there's that. Brian T says, "How do you feel about Tyranids? Total GW noob looking to jump in. I picked up a box of Gene Stealers to start off." Gene Stealers are part of the Tyranids in Kill Team, so you're good there. I was talking earlier that I'm a little, we'll just say, Tyranid curious. Like, I've never been interested in running them before, because I don't want to paint 100 of them. But being able to run at maximum 20 might be a cool thing to do. And I would really enjoy the painting, because I've never done any Tyranid painting before, and I was talking about how I'd like to maybe look up some like very exotic, weird-looking bugs on Google, and then make that visual look be my paint scheme somehow. I think that might be kind of fun. So I may end up going down that road at some point, just make a cool Tyranid army for Kill Team. But I don't know that I would ever build one for 40k, just because it becomes it's a lot of work. It's a lot. So there's that. What else have we got here? Wade Johnson says, for someone that's never played 40k or Age of Sigmar, would Kill Team be a good place to start? Yeah, I think so. Because for all the reasons I've been mentioning, it's some place where you can start small. You can like if you buy the starter box, you're going to get a viable force for both of those armies, for both the Adeptus Mechanicus and the other dudes, the Genestealer cults. I have not made up a Genestealer cult list yet, but I have made up an Adeptus Mechanicus list with the guys that came in the box. Where is it? It is here. So the models that are in the box can either be built as Vanguards or as Rangers, which basically is, frankly, it's like a head swap in different types of weapons. So the Vanguards, my leader is a Vanguard Alpha, and he's got a Phosphor Blast Pistol and a Taser Goad. I love the word goad. And then I've got 3 Vanguards with the Radium Carbine. Vanguards are cool because when you get into close combat with them, they are radioactive as hell, and they mess with your either leadership or your toughness. One of the two. I can't remember which. So we've got the Vanguard Alpha with the Phosphor Blast Pistol and the Taser Goad. We've got 3 Vanguards with the standard Radium Carbine, and we've got a Vanguard Gunner with the Plasma Caliver. And then we switch over to, so that's 5. Yes, 5 Vanguards. And then we've got 4 Rangers. We've got a Ranger with the Galvanic Rifle, which is their standard weapon. You've got the Ranger with the Galvanic Rifle and the Omnispecs, which is a piece of war gear that gives them a benefit. You've got a Ranger with the Galvanic Rifle and the Enhanced Data Tether, again, another added piece of war gear. And then lastly, you've got the Ranger with the Transoranic Arquebus, which is basically that big weird rifle that's on like a stick. Like, it's so big he's got to have like a stick on the ground because it's too heavy, it'll tip over. And it's on an oval base. So that's 98 points, and that's 9 guys. And 10 of them come in the box, so you could easily build a list like that with just those guys. And I'm sure you could do something just the same with the Genestealer cults. And then you've got 2 armies. You build and paint both of them, and you come up with a list like that. You not only can play, and you have a choice of armies, but you can play with a friend, have somebody who's never played before come over, and you can teach them, and then you could just play right there. You'd have everything you'd need right in that one box, and it's, like I said, costs like $130 American. So, yes, I do think it's a good starter box for that kind of stuff, and I think that's why they designed it that way. What else have we got? Talking about Nids versus the Zerg. Yeah, I get that. Sure. Okay. Eric says, I love the Tyranid Warriors in Shadow War. I'm wondering what the perks of adding non-warriors, Genestealers, or Gaunts to my kill team. That's, like, I don't know what a Lictor looks like. I'm going to go look. Because you can have Lictors. Lictor. Well, good lord, that's big and weird looking. I guess I'm not running any Lictors. That is an old metal model. Oh, hang on, you guys can't see this. Sorry. That is an old metal model, although now it's not in metal. I'm sure it's probably in resin, aka fine cast. Yeah, that's yep, resin kit, 8 components, supplied with the 40mm round base. Okay, so I'm probably not going to run any Lictors in my list, but you could. They're like 25 points. They're expensive in the game. But I don't see myself running any of those. What else can you run? Termagants. Hormagaunts. No, Termagants. Hormagaunts. Just a bit of a difference in the words there. Lictors, Tyranid Warriors, and Genestealers. So you can take Tyranid Warriors if you want to. They are how many points? Tyranid Warriors are 20 points. Wow. 3 wounds. Yeah, the Lictors are 4 wounds, and they're 25 points. But, yeah, so maybe I'll take some Tyranid Warriors and some Genestealers or something like that. That might be fun to paint. I could see doing that. Yeah. The Lictor, though, no, because that's I don't like the look of that sculpt, frankly. If they update it, maybe then I'm totally on board. Warriors come out to play. No, I want to put the word Tyranid in there. Tier. That's what we want. Okay. Are those? No, those are plastic. But for some reason, they're currently. You see this little dot over here with the little arrow? That means it's web store exclusive, which means you can't get it anywhere else except for their website right now. You can't get it in stores. I wonder why. why would this plastic kit, and it is a plastic kit, see, plastic, why would this plastic kit only be available in stores? That's strange. Well, anyway, these guys I think would be fun to take. Go back. Yeah, not that guy. I would not necessarily want to take that guy, but I would take Warriors definitely, because I think they're just, again, I'm not, I'm a hobby hero, a pro hobby hero, as I recently said in a video, which people thought was funny. But yeah, that's kind of where that's at. So, yeah, I would probably go Warriors before I would go Lictors. That's where I'm at. Oh my goodness, it's 11 p.m. or a.m., whatever time it is. So, thank you very much for coming and watching the show. I've got to go and do a bunch of other things today, and hopefully get some hobbying done tonight after everything's finished. Next couple of videos probably won't be about Kill Team. For those of you who are like, man, you sure been talking about Kill Team a lot, it's because it's something I'm very interested in that I think will help get people into the hobby who are new, and is also like, you kind of got to strike while the iron is hot. There's a lot of news about it. There's a lot of stuff. It's coming out next week, that kind of jazz. So, but the next couple of videos will probably not be down that road particularly, but I will still be talking about the kill teams I'm building here and there. I will eventually do some kill team battle reports and that kind of stuff. So that's where it's at. So I hope everybody had a good show, and I hope that that you get some hobby stuff finished while listening to this, or you did get some hobby stuff finished, or anything along those lines. And we'll see you. Well, I'm not sure when we'll see you next. Like I said, I'll be at Gen Con 2 weeks from today, so we'll have to figure something else out. But I'll let you know how that goes, and let you know when the date's going to be and what's going to happen and all that kind of stuff. So also keep an eye out if you're interested to the stuff that I put out while I'm at Gen Con. Like I said, I'll be on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram at Tabletop Minions. And yeah, there'll be stuff. Definitely. I'll be talking. So anyway, that's all I got for today, and thanks for watching.